Ready, Jeffrey? You guys ready? All right. Well, it's great to be back home. 4 out of the last 6 we get to play at home, and these 2 are as important as any games we played all season. So the goal is to get back to 500, 1 game at a time, starting with Washington State on Thursday. After watching the tape on the game last Sunday, that first barrage, we just couldn't handle it. But then after that, it wasn't a bad game. You know, just looking at the tape, I like the way the guys battled, and I like the way, they stay calm to fight back. So with that, why don't we open it up for questions?
Roberto talks all the time about sometimes that's just basketball.
Right.
When you go back and look at that 3-point barrage, was a lot of it what you guys are doing defensively, or is it just, guys are just going to make shots?
No, it was, when I was experiencing it, I thought we were doing everything wrong. When I looked at the tape, there were a couple of transition threes that we just couldn't get to, but that happens in the game. And it was a lot less us missing assignments than it was them making great shots. I can't, it's not like we can do a whole lot to change how we play. You just gotta, when you play a team that's got that many good shooters, you gotta cover them, and you just, gotta weather that storm. But I after watching the tape, it's more of they played great than we played poorly.
Coach, after being at 5-7 now, do you expect within these 2 Washington schools to win these 2?
That's a good question. I'd like to think so. I still think that every game we start out to play, we're going to win. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, so we're just focusing on Washington State. That's a game I think we can win, and that we played well against them at their place. And I think we play better when we're at home, so it feels like we've got a real good chance to win.
What about Devontae Lacey? Not playing in the first game. What's that going to change?
Yeah, it's gonna. Well, he's just such a prolific scorer, and he's doing a lot of scoring for them now. So I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it seems like if you can stop him, you can do a lot to stop them. I don't want to make it that simplistic. Just watching the tape, it seems like he is playing at a very high level. He's making shots and he's getting to the basket. So, if we can keep him from having his normal game of late, and then sort of keep Shelton under control, and then keep Johnson under control, we'll have a good shot at winning.
Alice is in the stretch here where he's played 30 more minutes in 5 straight games. What have you seen out of his game and his progression in the second half of the season that's really made you confident putting him out there?
Yeah, Jesse, we talk about, as coaches, freshmen hitting this so-called wall at this time of the year. And what's happened for me is that, and I'm not going to say he's hit it or not hit it, but it doesn't matter to me, because what I see from him is constant working on his craft. He's always in the gym, and therefore he's always prepared. So even if I think he's a little tired out there, he's doing things that are productive because he's working constantly. And it's great, because that's how that's how this coach gets his confidence in people, is how much they work in practice.
Does it also help that he has such a great attitude and is a competitor, doesn't like to lose?
It does, but I'd say at this level, all of the guys are good guys, good competitors. They don't want to lose, but you have to have the kind of behavior that makes that come to life, and it is putting the work in throughout the season. We're a team that we hit the weight room even during the season, this late in the season, because I think it's important to keep your work up. But this kid's in the gym working on things that he didn't do right in the game before or the game before that, trying to get better every day.
How much does Hallis's game complement everybody else out there, especially Roberto?
Yeah, his game is he's really a nice piece to have, because he's a scoring point guard. And he's not just a shooter. He can get to the basket, pull up, and then shoot threes. So you have those three ways of scoring. But then he's got a knack for the game where he can set up his big men. So when he draws attention, he seems to get it to the right person who's open. And then the cherry on top is that he's doing it without getting a lot of turnovers for a freshman. I mean, that's really been what's been impressive to me, is that he's playing all these minutes. He's not throwing the ball away.
Is he, actually a different question.
Yep.
Long years, do you have to play psychological coach at any point? And if so, what kind of deal, is it getting long? Is there any point at which you got a evaluation point for these guys?
The season, you mean, getting long? Not yet, no. But that doesn't have anything to do with the psychological part. I mean, you always have to have the sort of psychological aspect of coaching, because especially in this day and age, it feels like young people are not as focused on what's going on. They're quick to change up and not have the attention span that I remember that I needed to have to be a good basketball player. So you do have to have these ways of keeping their attention, which you have to do psychologically. You have to do it physiologically sometimes, and you have to be motivational. But the season doesn't feel long yet. No, it's interesting that we as a staff, we were talking about our season, coming out of that. We knew this was going to be a tough part of our season when you play the two Arizonas on the road and then have to go down to Oregon. We knew that, so we were talking about that. And at the end of it, we start looking at what we have going ahead. 4 of the last 6 at home, and then you say 4 of the last 6. Oh my goodness! And then you look at the date, and it's February 19th or whatever it is, and it's like, oh my goodness. Now, this is the first time we've had that sort of, oh my goodness, it's February. I mean, in the years past, it seemed long because you're not relevant, so you're working toward the tournament. So I would say it's almost the opposite. I mean, this season's gone by so fast for us. Now, the players might feel differently because they're in a different mindset. They're the ones who are grinding it out every day. And I could easily see them, with the amount of pressure that's been on every game, their minds could be feeling a little groggy, but it certainly doesn't show that in practice. I mean, yesterday I thought our practice was going to be sluggish. These guys came right back. I mean, they feel like we do. They're excited to be at home. And Halla said yesterday, is like, I'm back home. It feels like I haven't been here in 2 weeks. And it does feel like that, especially now that we practice over there when we're going on the road to have a different scene. And it really feels like we've been on the road like a NBA road trip. But it certainly doesn't feel like the season's long yet. I mean, we're hoping that it's long.
You've talked all year about the sense of urgency, and each game's the biggest game.
Right.
But it seems now with 6 games left, and on a 3-game losing streak, it's even more amplified right now. Are you confident with the guys that they are starting to sense that?
Oh yeah, no,
the big finish is needed?
they've figured it out, and we've tried. I've tried to treat them like adults, so it's not like we're pretending that we don't have 6 games left. I mean, sometimes you have to motivate by sort of just saying, this is it. But we've tried to treat our guys like professionals, like adults, so they know we have 6 games left. We've got 4 home games. We've got to get as many of these as we possibly can. And if we can get to 9-9, something like that, we'll be in some kind of discussion, especially if we do well in the conference tournament. So that's on everybody's mind. We're just trying to be realistic and adult about it, knowing that we can only look at it 1 game at a time. But everybody in that locker room knows the big picture.
Coming down the home stretch, do you want your players to play with as much intensity and fire, or do you want to conserve a little bit of energy for the tournament?
No, there's no conservation here. We have enough guys where we don't have to conserve. We can play hard. We can play hard all the way up to the end, both because we're home and the way the schedule plays out. You know, we have one more Wednesday, Saturday. That's the next home game. This is going to be sort of our normal Thursday, Saturday. Then we're on the road. We got Thursday, Sunday. So that gives you a little time to regroup after tough games. So there's no need to conserve energy. As a matter of fact, we have to do the other thing. We have to play each game like it's our last one, and we're going to get cut if we lose the next one.
Malcolm played season-high 24 minutes on Sunday. What have you seen out of his progress?
Practice. I mean, he was killing in practice this week. And, again, that's, you know, for me, the best way to get my confidence is to get my confidence at practice and do it continuously, not just have one practice and the rest are mediocre. I mean, he was arguably the best player in practice all of last week. And in his case, you know, I don't know if I've said it with you guys for this year yet, but the way the cyclical flow of a freshman year is, there's always the light bulb moment where you kind of figure it out. I used the term last year. It's like taking cost accounting, where when there's a part it's after the midterm but before the final, and you figure out how everything reconciles. That happens your freshman year, and that happened with Malcolm either the week before or sometime at the beginning of last week, of the prior week, because he just started putting things together, and he's playing with a level of confidence that makes me feel like I can put him out there and not worry about him making a ridiculous freshman mistake. Now, if he's making a mistake out there, it's going to be a basketball mistake. And fortunately for Hallis, that happened earlier. For Malcolm, it's happened now. So I suspect if he practices this week like he did last week, he'll probably play as many minutes, or, you know, he'll play more minutes than he has been in the past.
And speaking of freshmen, Che hasn't played much of any. Where is he as far as progress goes?
You know, the tough thing about big men is they take longer, and he's got 2.5 guys ahead of him. So he's got Angus, who is a dude out there, and then he's got Daniel Gomez, who's coming into his game. I mean, he's playing better and better each game, and I'm getting more confident in him. And then we have Olaf, who I can sometimes put in that role depending on how it looks defensively. So his amount of playing time, and he's had some nagging injuries that, you know, it doesn't seem necessary to take any kind of risks to have him out there with no potential for reward. But I think ultimately everyone will be surprised at how good he's going to be. I mean, I say this because he's 7 feet tall, but I'll be surprised if he'll be here for the entire 4 years.
Most guys obviously coming to college having been a man at the high school level. How has he kind of dealt with, you know, not being able to play much? He's done a great job. He's been a great teammate. He has been a wonderful practice player. He practices hard every day. He works on his game every day, and I'm sure he wants more time, like all players want more time. He's handled his role of not getting time as well as anybody. So, and we are just one twisted ankle or twisted knee or, you know, elbow to the head of him being in the game for a significant amount of time.
You got a lot of guys, though, in that position. It's kind of nice to have.
It is, especially when you know you're losing a guy of Angus Brandt's capabilities. I mean, you know, he's getting to the point, Angus is getting to the point where I believe that he believes he's as good as he was prior to the injury. I mean, he's coming in for extra workouts, he's more springy, he's more confident, he's very aggressive. And when you know this is the last go-around, you talk about sucking the life out of guys and no conservation. He's coming out when he tells me he needs a blow, and he's going in when I feel like he's had enough rest, and then he's going right back. But then to have Shea and Daniel, and then Isaiah Manderson coming in, and Olaf, you still have some height and girth to live with going forward. It's not a bad scenario, but it's going to be hard to replace Angus.
I know Josh brought this up earlier, but on Washington State, do you do anything different? Do you look at film from the last game and say, okay?
We would if they were playing like that and didn't add Lacey. I of course I'll watch the last game. I've watched it, but I'll watch more of what they're doing recently. Lacey's scoring 50% of their points. I mean, you gotta make sure that he doesn't do that, and make sure every single shot he takes is a hard shot, and then get the rebound. And we keep doing what we're doing. Offensively, we're not having trouble scoring. We just have to stop guys.
Is there a sense when you're playing a round robin, and it's been going on forever, so it's nothing new, is there a sense that you have to remind the guys, it may have been easy the first time, but look what they did 2 or 3 weeks in a row after we beat them?
Mm-hmm. Well, especially in a league that's this tough. I mean, top to bottom, everybody could beat everybody. I mean, you look at our game against USC, that was one foul shot away from being an overtime game, right? At home. So, and we beat Oregon the first time, they beat us the second time. I mean, nothing's guaranteed, so you have to come out and play. It's almost better that Lacey's back to give us something to worry about and not be cocky over. I mean, there's no way that these guys are overlooking these guys now, because this is a different team with Lacey in there.
You said you haven't liked your team starts the past couple games. On Sunday, I think you said you've got to figure out how you got to change that. Have you got any thoughts about any lineup changes?
Yeah, I don't think I am. I don't think I am unless something happens this week that makes me change that. And before you got in, I was talking about I went back and watched the tape and calmed down. And in the heat of it, I probably thought that. But when I watched the tape, they made a lot of shots. And it wasn't just because we were coming out on a slow start. I didn't think our start was when I watched it on tape, it wasn't as slow as it was. Theirs was hot. So I might have talked myself back off the ledge, or watched myself back off the ledge with that. But I'll leave it open. It's not. I might change my mind.
When you put Hollis and Langston in the starting lineup, was back, however many games ago that was, are they still bringing that same kind of energy? Or have they
Yeah.
settled in?
Langston has been an absolute stalwart defender for us, an energy guy, and every single hustle play, I look on the tapes, and he's the guy who's either initiated it or ended up with the ball. And then Hollis is just, I'm waiting for him to hit that freshman wall, but he's working so hard that he won't let me. He won't let me see it. When I think he's exhausted, he's at practice with the most energy of anybody. So. No, I think I'm happy with those guys. If I'm going to challenge anybody, when you get to this part of the season, you got to challenge your seniors. You got to challenge your veterans to get you through the dog days of the season. And that's that. But our seniors know that, so I don't have to make a symbolic point. I just have to tell them, hey, look, let's get going.
Eric's on the verge of becoming the top shot blocker in school history. Not all big men are good shot blockers.
Right.
But, what makes him a good shot blocker?
Eric has two things working for him. Well, actually, three when you count his physical length. I mean, he's a long kid to begin with. But the two things that aren't sort of God-given are because he's so long, when he goes up to block one shot and comes down, he can block another shot sometimes without having to recoil like a guy like I would have to be, being 6'6", you know what I mean? He's up, down, up, as good as anybody I've ever seen. That helps him with his rebounding too. The other thing is he's just got a real knack for the game of basketball. He knows where things are going, especially on the defensive end. Offensively, it's not the same, but on the defensive end, he can sniff that ball out. He can tell when guys are going to shoot, and he really has a good sense of how far away he can be from a guy and still block his shot. And it's deceiving when a guy's 6'11" because he's further off you than you think. And next thing you know, you go up to shoot, and he's got his hand on it. And those are the two things. And then, Eric is a tireless worker. I mean, it's a shame that he's only played half the season, or will have played by the end played half the season. But he brings such a level of hard work out there, and it's nice because when you have Hallis, who is a worker, and Langston and Eric out there at the same time, it's a good combination of guys who can help you come back from 19 down.
Langston had a lot of success with threes earlier in the season. He's been shooting a lot more lately. Do you want him to maybe, because I know you said that you didn't want him to be a scorer earlier this season.
Yeah, you know what I want him to be is what he's doing, shooting wide open threes after we've tried to probe inside. That's when he makes his shots. I mean, if you take a look at the film and you take a look at, we have software now, we can look at every single play one guy makes in a game. And when he makes his threes, it's usually when he catches and has some time, and it's just like a foul shot for him. When he tries to do it off the dribble, it's not the same thing. And he's very good going to the basket. So, I don't mind him going to the basket. And the reason why we're shooting threes so well this season is because, as I've said before, we've got the right guys shooting the right amount of threes.
So earlier in the season, when he said, because I think you said, correct me if I'm wrong, he said he was struggling to accept his role kind of as a non-scorer.
Right.
Was he maybe shooting threes that weren't wide open? Is that kind of?
Yeah, well, I think, no, when I said that, what I meant was that psychologically, if you think you want to be a scorer and your role isn't to be a scorer, you just take bad shots because you think you should be scoring. I mean, it's happened to a lot of guys who play basketball, and it happened to me when I first started playing in college. In high school, I was the leading scorer on my team. I went right to college, thought I should be the leading scorer of the team, and it doesn't work that way all the time. And it took him a while to get that. And now, once he got it, he had to go down to number 13 and fight his way back up. But he was able to do it because he figured it out and figured out other ways to help us win. Scoring can be overrated in a group of 5. And he's figured out how to make a role for himself without scoring a whole lot of points. And the great thing about it is whenever we need him to do something within the offense, it's a surprise to the other team, but he's not inoffensive. He's a good offensive player. That it?
You give your thoughts on Roberto coaching an IM team. I know you went out and saw him last week.
Yeah, and I was tempted to go again last night, not for Roberto's sake, but he's coaching our managers. But the last time I went, I got the impression that our managers were nervous because I was there, so I stayed away. Because I didn't go to the other game, they won. I go to the game, they lose, and then I don't go to the game now, they win. So they might have scared me off. But of course, I like Roberto's coaching skills because he's doing everything I do. He's doing exactly the same thing that I do, and I remind him of that on a daily basis. No, he's, it's more of a statement about what a team player he is. I mean, how many leading scorers of any Division I team would coach their own managers? I mean, forget about the fact that he is the leading scorer in the Pac-12. Forget about he's a fifth-year senior trying to work on getting his degree and take us to the NCAA tournament. He finds time to sort of have some fellowship and fellowship's not the right word, but you know what I mean, camaraderie, and time with a team full of managers. I think that says a lot about who he is. Nobody's surprised by it when they hear you tweet about it or see you write about it. Nobody's surprised that he's coaching those guys, you know. So it's a pretty cool thing. You want any before I go? Because I was just on my way out.
I guess I kind of missed. I can get the audio, I guess.
Huh?
You probably already touched upon everything.
I did, but
I'm sorry.
that's all right. I'm giving you a shot.
I think nothing comes to mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
I have questions, but
Okay. All right. Cool. Anybody else? All right. Who's coming in? What players? Hallison there. Well, they'll say the same thing.